Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today we're tackling a really fascinating sociological study coming out of Gilan Province in Iran.
Yeah, it's digging into how different kinds of media, everything from state TV to social media, how they're influencing something called political ethnocentrism.
Specifically within the Talysh ethnic group there.
That's the focus.
And our mission today really is to unpack what this study found. What exactly is driving these shifts in ethnic identity?
And maybe the kicker for listeners.
Yeah.
Why are the traditional ways governments usually, manage this stuff, why do they seem to be failing here?
The researchers' starting point is pretty stark, actually. They surveyed, 430 Talysh residents?
Over 15, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the big headline from their perspective is that the whole media scene is changing so fast that it's resulted in, and this is their phrase, the defeat of the government's monopoly on information.
Wow. Okay, declaring a government monopoly defeated, that definitely sets a dramatic stage. It really speaks to how identity gets shaped now. All right, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Political ethnocentrism, or PE. It sounds a bit like just being proud of your background, but the study says it's distinct.
Yeah, it's a crucial distinction. PE isn't just cultural pride, like enjoying your group's music or food. It's more active. It's the deliberate effort by an ethnic group to push for more status, a bigger role in society, specifically through political means.
So influencing policy, getting involved in politics?
Exactly. It's when that cultural identity says, okay, we need a seat at the political table.
And how did they actually see this PE, showing up among the Talysh in the study? What were the examples?
Well, they looked for concrete political actions. Things like pushing to set up local political parties or actively making sure Talysh representatives get chosen in elections, both local and national.
And demanding more political say overall.
Yes, wanting more involvement in just general regional management. It's really a collective push for more recognition, more power within the existing system.
Okay, let's talk about the Talysh themselves for a second. Give us the context. Where are they, and why is this area such a good place to study these shifts?
Sure. They live mainly in the western part of Gilan Province. It's mountainous, and it's incredibly diverse. You've got Talysh, Turk, Gilak, Tat, Kurd, all living side by side. It's not just one group. It's a real mix.
A tapestry, as you said.
Right. And there are other divisions, too. Geographically, the Aras River splits some communities, and religiously, you have both Shia and Sunni Talysh.
But the sources really stress that, historically anyway, these groups got along pretty well, high level of coexistence. So what changed? Why is this ethnic identity suddenly becoming political?
That's the key question. The researchers point to recent pressures. Things like rapid urbanization, changing landscape, also a big expansion of ecotourism, and more industrialization moving in.
So economic and social disruption.
Exactly. These big shifts strain local resources, mess with traditional ways of life. And the argument is, this pressure makes the ethnic element more salient. Cultural differences that were maybe just background noise before, they start turning into political demands for resources or recognition.
So this region becomes a sort of pressure cooker. Groups that live together fine now feel maybe pushed aside by modernization, and identity becomes a way to push back.
Precisely. It becomes a political shield, in a way.
Okay, that context is super important, because now we get to the core findings. And this is where, honestly, a lot of assumptions about politics kind of get turned on their head. Let's talk new media versus the old guard. What did the study find about satellite TV and social networks?
Well, the headline finding is that these external decentralized platforms are actually boosting this political ethnic identity. Satellite channels, and specifically online social networks, showed a statistically significant positive link to higher PE among the Talysh.
Positive link meaning the more they use them, the higher their PE score. And they rank the influence, right? Using correlation numbers. What was the biggest driver according to the data?
Foreign satellite channels had the strongest link. The correlation was R0.241. Now, in social science terms, that's considered moderate, but it's definitely significant. It points a pretty clear finger.
So satellite TV is number one. What about social media?
Next came Telegram, with a correlation of R0.169, and then Instagram at R0.124.
Still significant effects.
Absolutely. The pattern is clear.
Right.
More time on these outside, often user-driven platforms relates directly to stronger political ethnocentrism.
Okay, but here's the part that really jumped out at me. The finding that just seems counterintuitive. What did not have any significant link to PE?
Right. This is finding B, and it's the real surprise. Consuming traditional domestic media, the internal state influence channels showed basically zero relationship, no effect either way.
Zero.
Zero significant effect. And maybe even more surprising, the factors we almost always assume drive political views, religion, level of education, age, even gender, none of these showed a significant link to PE either.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying this push for specific political demands, it isn't just like educated young people. It's not split along Shia versus Sunni lines. It's not older versus younger generations.
Apparently not. The lack of difference across those demographic lines is pretty striking.
How do the researchers explain that disconnect?
Well, it suggests that this feeling, this sense of perceived deprivation or marginalization and the move towards political demands, it's not just one subgroup feeling it, it's widespread. It seems to be more of a structural sociocultural shift that's affecting the Talysh community pretty much across the board.
So when basically everyone feels marginalized, regardless of age or education,
Then the media they choose to engage with, the external media, becomes powerful enough to cut across those internal divides. It suggests a really deep shared feeling of alienation that this outside media is tapping into and amplifying.
that's a really powerful point. Okay, let's pivot slightly and dig into that failure and success story. If the domestic state-run media used to kind of keep ethnocentrism in check, why did it lose all its power? What went wrong?
According to the study, the main culprits were neglect and, frankly, poor representation. Domestic media just wasn't adequately reflecting the Talysh culture, their language, their specific concerns.
So they felt ignored.
Essentially, yes. When an ethnic minority feels like the main narrative, the state narrative, is ignoring them or marginalizing them, those official channels lose their credibility. They lose their influence almost overnight.
And like you said, nature abhors a vacuum. So if domestic media isn't representing them, they turn elsewhere. To foreign satellite, okay, but also to social networks to build that identity themselves.
Exactly. And this is where you see the mechanisms of new media becoming really potent political tools. Social networks offer what the sources call a virtual public sphere. Some sociologists call it a third place. It's a space where people can talk, interact, build community, often away from state eyes.
And these platforms change the whole game when it comes to political action, right? It's not like organizing a march anymore.
Precisely. It drastically lowers the cost and barrier to entry for collective action. This ties into ideas like political turbulence, which Helen Margetts talks about. People can participate through what the study calls tiny acts. Just retweeting a political slogan in Talysh, or sharing a video complaining about some outside official being appointed locally.
Little things, but visible.
Very visible. And these tiny acts, because they are so visible online, generate social pressure and what's called the bandwagon effect.
So you see others doing it and it encourages you.
Right. You suddenly realize, hey, I'm not the only one who feels this way. That visibility itself becomes a motivator. It makes the movement feel real and growing.
You know, this whole picture, people ditching traditional politics, organizing through these decentralized networks, it sounds a lot like Manuel Castell's concept of rupture.
That's exactly how the study frames it. These movements are seen as moments of rupture. Citizens lose faith in the old ways, in the established political processes. Legitimacy erodes. And so they start looking for new political actors, often based on identity, who seem to actually speak to their specific, maybe hyper-local concerns.
The key thing here seems to be that the media isn't just reporting on this shift.
It's actively building the infrastructure for it. It's creating the spaces for political organization outside of the state's reach.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this. The researchers use something called path analysis to map out how these different factors influence each other. For listeners not familiar, what did that analysis show? How do things like Telegram and Instagram fit into the bigger picture?
Right. Path analysis lets you see the whole chain reaction, not just isolated effects. The model confirmed that satellite channels and Telegram have a direct impact. They directly increase PE.
Okay. But Instagram's role was different.
Yeah, Instagram's role was more indirect, but still important. It essentially acts as a gateway, or maybe a booster.
A booster.
Meaning, using Instagram significantly increased the chances that someone would also use satellite channels and Telegram more heavily.
Interesting. So Instagram gets them in the door, maybe visually, culturally.
Exactly. It's great for sharing cultural content, building that initial community vibe, maybe less so for the hardcore political organizing. So it draws people into the identity conversation and then kind of pushes them towards those platforms, satellite and Telegram, where the more direct political mobilization happens.
So it reinforces the whole trend. It's like the recruitment tool.
You could see it that way, yeah. The awareness and maybe recruitment part of the movement.
So given this whole system that's successfully bypassing the old controls, what did the study actually recommend? What can be done to counter this alienation?
Well, the recommendations are really focused on rebuilding trust and providing real, meaningful representation. Recommendation 1 is basically empower domestic media. The state channels have to get much better at reflecting the actual multicultural reality of the region. They need to properly represent all the groups, Talish, Turk, Gilak, everyone.
To fight that feeling of being ignored, that pushes people outwards.
Precisely. Address the root cause, the feeling of isolation.
Makes sense. So fill the void, but with genuine representation, not just more top-down messaging. What about how the region is actually run?
Recommendation 2 tackles that directly. Increase local participation. This means prioritizing using local experts, indigenous people, in actual management positions. One of the big drivers of grievance identified was having non-locals appointed to run things. So putting trusted local leaders in charge could reduce that feeling of deprivation and political tension.
Give people a constructive way to feel represented.
Right. Make political identity feel like it has a place within the system, not just outside it.
And the last recommendation seemed to lean into culture, but maybe more proactively.
Yeah. Recommendation 3 is about promoting cultural coexistence. The idea is to use the region's tourism potential. Host big cultural events, festivals, music, food fairs, craft shows that celebrate the heritage of all the groups living there, including the Talysh.
So create positive outlets for cultural expression.
It's exactly. Foster understanding between groups, give identity a celebratory, constructive outlet, so maybe it doesn't need to become purely a political demand born out of frustration.
You know, this whole deep dive really hammers home just how central our media choices have become to who we are politically, especially in the 21st century. What you decide to watch, what you share, it's not just entertainment anymore. This study suggests it's an active political decision that shapes your reality.
It really does. I mean, this study pretty explicitly shows political identity being shaped more by your chosen media diet satellite, Telegram, than by those traditional anchors like family, age, or even religion. And that leads to a really provocative thought, doesn't it? If political identity is increasingly untethered from, say, shared local history and more tied to these personalized, often globalized media streams, what does that mean for national unity versus these very specific, maybe hyper-localized identity movements?
Right.
We tend to think of media as just reflecting society, like a mirror. But this research suggests it's much more active than that. It's an architect, really, building the very political realities it then reports on. Something to think about.